No matter how hard opposition tries to manipulate you into believing that charities are fundamentally evil, that they don't want the best outcomes for people who are in need, but that's fundamentally wrong. Charities do their best. They spend their time, they're non-profit organizations that pour every second and every dollar that they have into helping people in need. No matter what opposition tries to tell you that individuals dictate the lives of people, that is fundamentally wrong as well, because individuals give money to the charities who then support people, who then support their lives, because the individuals have the autonomy and choice to choose and support whomever they like, not the government. 3 questions then for the House today. First, who gets better incentives? Second, does this break the individual donor's autonomy of choice in who they donate to? And third, who has the better capacity to help the people in need? Okay, what did they tell us on the first point? Well, their first response was to say that because they're going to want to change, or else like they're not going to have their money anymore. So what they said is that they're going to become more effective essentially because they're scared they're going to lose money. The first response is to say that if they end up changing, this is not even going to do anything at all. Nothing will have changed. Look, these companies are going to become the most effective again. Now, they're not going to lose any money. So how is that any different from the status quo? Instead, you just have a third party that is able to now possibly be ripe with corruption and possibly have an even worse system for non-profit organizations. Second, though, that the harms of autonomy and the de-incentivization of people not donating still exist, because people now know that they don't, like, the money that they might be donating to doesn't necessarily go to the charity and the cause that they want to. They're thus less incentivized to donate to the non-profit organizations and charities. But even if this means that if they become more effective, they can now siphon money from the less effective charities, thus only helping their own cause and thus fueling more corruption, even if it was to exist. But second, they tried to tell us that it was far too appealing to the public. Our first response is to say that if you don't appeal to the public, then how are you supposed to get funds? Because the fact is, second here, that advertising builds awareness. What it does is it builds education and a fundamental understanding of what that charity is trying to do to help and better the cause itself. And what that does, it creates longevity for the cause itself. It means that people are now more likely to donate at the point where you've spent money on advertising, because you must spend money to make money, and if you're not making money for the cause, then you're fundamentally failing, and that includes as the effectiveness of a charity. But even if people are still, like, the money brought in is thus benefiting far more people at the point where you have advertising in place. So to say that having advertising is a waste of money and thus less effective is intrinsically wrong. Okay, they tried to tell us last then that board members will be keeping profits for themselves, that that's too bureaucratic. Our first response is to say that the profit, if it's diverted, the board members will simply leave, because now it is less profitable, because now they're unable or don't have the capacity to be able to help the people in need. They're going to move into other forms of charity to further their own cause. This means that the charity will most likely just dissolve. But second, that they assume all board members are inherently evil. We like to reiterate again that these charities, the characterization is not that they're greedy companies, but that they are non-profit organizations that aim to help a cause. That means that the board members most likely aren't greedy people as well, but what they want to do is help the cause itself. But third, even if we assume that they have evil, we assume that evil sort of characteristic, they are still very transparent in the sense that, these charities, they release every information about them. They have all their financial records open to the public, as in the status quo. They constantly show on social media what they're about. They're constantly followed by media sources. Nothing they do is not within the public vicinity. They can't do anything that is unethical without them completely losing support and thus losing funding, thus being shut down. We win on the idea that they get better incentives because at the point where a person knows that their money is going into a charity that's going into the cause that they chose, they're more incentivized to be able to put their money in, and thus you get more donators, you get more tangible benefits for the people in need. Okay, now second, does this breach the individual donator's autonomy? They first tried to respond to this by saying that, it's all about saving the lives. But this is intrinsically wrong for the first reason, that people still have the individual autonomy to decide where that money goes to. We fed you the narrative down the line that it's not essentially about what is the most effective charity or what is a cause that is greater than another. Because essentially, it's up for the individual person to weigh that. If they feel that something such as mental health is prioritized over cancer, that's not for the government or some third-party organization to think about and to analyze about. It's for that person whose their money is being put into, for them to weigh up which is more important to them, to which cause needs the most beneficial and help. It's for them to give their money to, not for a third-party organization to shift funds around. Second, though, at the point where they are equal, this means that the donators, like shared responded, should be respected. Because then they tried to say that all of these are equal. But if they're equal, then we should just respect one person's individual autonomy, because if they're equal, then that respect then outweighs that equality. Okay, but then they tried to tell us that the money will be allocated into something similar anyways. But first, that most of these charities are very niche. These are the ones that they tried to say are very ineffective. That means that they're not even going to have money anyways, because they're going to be siphoned into the larger charities who are going to fund their own causes. That means these charities, who are like supporting specific diseases, are now going to be neglected, they're forgotten about, and that cause is completely lost. But second, moreover, this means that we separate efficiency from the morality and the idea of being able to help whatever cause that you need. You can't just try to claim that, this third-party organization will somehow be able to decide that something is very similar to another. Let that person decide themselves what they want to put their money into and what they want to support. That's the simple and most effective way, and how charities have been working for so long. Now, third, on the capacity to actually help the people. They didn't really have a response other than to say that the money isn't being used to the greatest ability. But first we say that the metric that they try to use is incredibly deceiving and doesn't really work. Because you can't judge effectiveness of a company at the point where they don't even think that advertising to get more money, to get more tangible outcomes for the people in need isn't even a thing. Like, their metric is incredibly flawed from the beginning. But second, even if the individual autonomy still needs to be respected here, we've proven that with better incentives, because people know that their money is going to their own causes, that there are going to be more tangible outcomes for the cause at hand. We win on that principle.